Central Thailand, September 2011. Another Friday. Children walk to school in Ayutthaya. Markets open in Pathum Thani. Workers clock in at the industrial parks north of Bangkok.
Bangkok's second airport has been shut down, and there's a 5-day closure of schools and government offices to help prepare for the deluge.
The Chao Phraya River flows through the heart of the country, the same as it has for centuries. Nobody saw it coming, but it had already begun.
In fact, the governor of Bangkok has acknowledged that the floodwaters...
5 tropical storms had soaked the country through August. Tropical storm Haima, tropical storm Nok 10. Then came the monsoon rains, relentless, day after day. The dams were full, the rivers were high, the ground saturated.
Today, for many it seems, this nightmare is becoming all too real.
By late September, the Bhumibol Dam and Sirakit Dam, the 2 largest in the country, were at 110% capacity. Engineers knew what was coming. What looked like distant rain would soon drown cities. Section 2. The decision. September 28th, Bangkok. The Royal Irrigation Department faces a choice. The dams are at capacity. The water has to go somewhere.
What are being described as the country's most severe floods for a decade have left.
They can spread it across the northern provinces, slow the flow, protect the industrial zones, give Bangkok time to prepare, or they can open the gates, let it rush south, save the capital at all costs. The meeting lasts 3 hours. Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra's government is only 2 months old. This is their first major crisis. They choose Bangkok. We had to prioritize the heart of the nation, one official would later say in a leaked memo. The decision is made behind closed doors. No public announcement, no warning to the provinces in the water's path. The flood was no longer just natural. It had been redirected.
Here, the Foreign Office has warned against all but essential travel to affected areas of Thailand, threatening further damage to the tourist industry.
The first warnings. Ignored. October 1st, Nakhon Sawan Province. The water arrives first in the north. A local official, Somkid, tries to warn his district. He's been watching the river levels for weeks. I called Bangkok, he'll say later. I told them we needed sandbags, pumps, evacuation plans. They said they'd get back to me. They never did. By October 3rd, his district is underwater. On October 4th, the government holds a press conference. The situation is under control, the spokesperson says. Bangkok is not at risk. It's the first lie. October 5th, Ayutthaya Province. The water doesn't crash in, it just rises. First the roads, then the ground floors, then the temples. 600-year-old stone Buddhas sitting chest-deep in brown water. Ayutthaya is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Tourists come from around the world to see the ancient ruins. Now the ruins are drowning. At the Rojana Industrial Park, a factory worker named Precha gets the evacuation order at 3:47 p.m. We had 20 minutes to save what we could, he'll say later. I grabbed my toolbox and ran. When I looked back, the machines were already underwater. Precha works at a Western digital factory. His job is assembling hard drives, the kind that go into laptops, servers, data centers. He's been there for 8 years. He knows every machine on the floor. I watched them disappear, he says, one by one. The water just kept rising. By nightfall, 7 industrial estates are submerged. The factories that make the world's hard drives, the assembly lines for Toyota and Honda, the electronics plants for Sony and Canon, all of it, silent, flooded, stopped. October 6th, Ayutthaya. A rescue volunteer named Lek navigates his boat through what used to be a residential street. He's looking for people who refused to evacuate. The elderly, the stubborn, the ones with nowhere to go. I found a woman on her roof, he says. She'd been there for 2 days. No food, no water. She was holding her cat. He pulls her into the boat. She doesn't say anything, just stares at the water. She kept looking back at her house, Lek says, like she was waiting for it to reappear. It never did. Section 5. The water moves south. October 12th. The water moves through irrigation canals, through rice fields, through suburbs. Satellite images from NASA show it like a slow-motion tsunami. a dark stain spreading south, 50 kilometers wide, 100 kilometers long. Hydrologists call it a sheet flood. There's no single wave, no dramatic surge, just water, everywhere, advancing. Residents in Pathum Thani and Nonthaburi try to sandbag their homes. It doesn't work. The water is waist deep now, then chest deep. The smell hits you first: mud, sewage, gasoline from submerged cars, rotting food, dead animals.
When the level did rise, it came up quickly, and we were all shocked. We knew the flood was coming, but we weren't told when or how high it would be.
One woman, Somchai, carries her 6-year-old daughter on her shoulders through the streets of Nonthaburi. She kept asking when we could go home, Somchai says. I didn't know what to tell her. Somchai is a seamstress. She works from home, making clothes for a local market. Her sewing machine is underwater now. Her fabric, ruined. Her orders, canceled. I lost everything in one day, she says. My work, my home, my life. But she doesn't cry. Not yet. I had to stay strong for her, she says, looking at her daughter. If I broke down, she would too. October 14th, Rangsit. A man named Wichai refuses to leave his house. He's 68 years old. He built this house with his own hands in 1985. I'm not leaving, he tells his son over the phone. This is my home. His son lives in Bangkok. He's been calling every day, begging him to evacuate. The water's coming, Dad. You have to leave. Let it come, Wichai says. 2 days later, the water reaches his front door, then his living room, then his bedroom. On October 18th, his son arrives by boat. Wichai is sitting on his roof, surrounded by water. I told you, his son says. Wichai doesn't respond. He just looks at the water. I thought I could wait it out, he says finally. I thought it would stop. It didn't. By mid-October, the water has reached the edge of Bangkok. The government faces a choice, who to save and who to sacrifice. Bangkok holds the line. October 18th, Pathum Thani. Narong stands on his second-floor balcony. The water has been there for 2 weeks. His neighbors left days ago. He refuses. I've lived here 40 years, he says. Where am I supposed to go? Below him, his motorcycle floats past. His wife's wedding photos, ruined. The furniture, swollen, useless. This isn't a flood anymore. It's an occupation. October 25th, Bangkok. The government holds another press conference. We are doing everything we can to protect the capital, the spokesperson says. But the question everyone is asking, protect it from what? And at whose expense? The answer comes 3 days later.
Defences are going up, but no one really knows how high they need to be.
Section 7. The Great Divide. October 29th, Bangkok. The water reaches the northern edge of the capital. Officials open floodgates along the Chao Phraya River to relieve pressure. The decision is surgical. Protect downtown Bangkok. Let the outer districts flood. In the suburbs, people watch the water pour in. They know what happened. The government lied, and now they're drowning for it. Protests erupt in Rangsit, in Don Muang. Furious crowds demand answers. They saved the rich and drowned the rest of us, one protester shouts into a camera. A woman named Noi holds a sign. Why is my house worth less than theirs? She lives in Don Muang, just north of the city center. Her neighborhood has been underwater for a week. They built walls to protect downtown, she says. They diverted the water to us. We're the sacrifice. One city, two worlds. Downtown Bangkok. Dry sidewalks, open restaurants, traffic jams. The BTS SkyTrain runs on schedule. Shopping malls are packed. 5 kilometers north. Entire neighborhoods underwater. Boats replacing cars. Evacuation centers packed with families sleeping on gym floors. A Bangkok Post journalist, Apinya, walks the dividing line. On one side, normalcy. On the other, disaster. It's surreal, she writes. You can stand in one spot and see both worlds, the haves and the have-nots, separated by sandbags and political decisions. They saved the heart. The limbs were left to flood. November 2nd, Don Muang Airport. The water breaches the flood barriers. Don Muang is one of Bangkok's 2 major airports. It's been converted into a flood relief command center. Now it's flooding. Soldiers scramble to move supplies to higher ground. Helicopters evacuate personnel. The images go global. An airport, underwater. The government insists Bangkok is safe. The water says otherwise.
Water in major rivers and canals also rose rapidly.
Section 8. The world feels it. October 30th. California. An engineer at Western Digital opens an email from the Thailand office. Production. Halted indefinitely. He stares at the screen. The factories in Ayutthaya and Pathum Thani produce 40% of the world's hard drives. He picks up the phone. Calls his manager. We have a problem. Within days, hard drive prices double, then triple. Computer manufacturers scramble. Dell, HP, Lenovo, all of them depend on Thai factories. Supply chains seize. In Japan, Toyota shuts down 3 plants. In the US, Honda delays new car releases. In Germany, BMW halts production lines. A flood in Thailand. A shortage in Silicon Valley. A crisis in Detroit. $45 billion in global losses. One decision. One redirection. The world's economy, disrupted by water. November 5th, Tokyo. A supply chain analyst named Hiroshi presents to his board. We have a single point of failure, he says. Thailand produces 25% of the world's hard drives. If Thailand stops, the world stops. The board listens. We need to diversify, Hiroshi says. This can't happen again, but it's too late. The damage is done. November 10th, New York. The stock market reacts. Western Digital stock drops 18% in one day. Seagate drops 12%. Tech analysts scramble to explain. This isn't just a flood, one says on CNBC. This is a supply chain earthquake. The ripple effect spreads. Apple delays product launches. Microsoft warns of shortages. Amazon raises prices. A flood in Thailand has reached Wall Street. Section 9. The Unseen Casualties. November. Evacuation centers. Somchai and her daughter have been there for 3 weeks. The center is a school gymnasium. 400 people packed into a space meant for 100. Mats on the floor. Shared bathrooms. 1 meal a day. The girl used to ask questions. When can we go home? Where's my school? Why does the water smell like that? One day she was asking. The next day, nothing. She stopped talking. The doctors call it trauma. Somchai calls it what the flood took that you can't see. A psychologist named Dr. Siriporn volunteers at the evacuation centers. She sees it everywhere. Children who won't sleep. Adults who stare at nothing. Families who've stopped speaking to each other. Trauma doesn't announce itself, she says. It just settles in. She estimates that 30% of the displaced are showing signs of PTSD, and that's just the ones we can see, she says. November 15th. Pathum Thani. Narong finally leaves his house. The water is still there. It's been a month. He gets sick 2 weeks later. Leptospirosis. A bacterial infection from the floodwater. He survives. Barely. The water tried to kill me twice, he says. Once by drowning, once by disease. The hospitals are overwhelmed. Leptospirosis, dengue fever, skin infections, diarrhea, respiratory illnesses. Dr. Tunita works at a hospital in Nonthaburi. She hasn't slept more than 4 hours a night in weeks. We're treating diseases we haven't seen in years, she says. The floodwater is toxic. Everything in it, sewage, chemicals, bacteria, it's all mixed together. By mid-November, over 10,000 people have been hospitalized for flood-related illnesses. The official death toll is 815, but Dr. Tunita knows the real number is higher. People die at home, she says. In evacuation centers, in boats, we don't always count them. Section 10. December. The water drains. By late December, the water finally recedes. Somchai returns to her house. The door is stuck, swollen from the water. When she finally gets it open, the smell hits her first. Rot, mold, everything ruined. The furniture has to be thrown away. The walls have to be stripped. The floors torn up. Her daughter stands in the doorway, silent. Somchai looks around. This was my life, she says. Now it's just gone. December 20th. Ayutthaya. Preacher returns to the factory. The gates are locked. A sign. Closed until further notice. He stands outside, looking through the fence. The factory floor is covered in mud. The machines, rusted, destroyed. I knew it was bad, he says. But seeing it, that's different. He'll later learn that the factory won't reopen for 18 months. By then, he'll have found another job, lower pay, longer hours. The flood took my career, he says, not just my house.
Section 11, The Reckoning, January 2012, Bangkok. The government announces an investigation into the flood response.
Travel to affected areas of Thailand.
We will learn from this, Prime Minister Yingluck says. We will be better prepared next time, but the public isn't convinced. Protests continue. Families demand accountability. Who decided to flood our homes, they ask.
The scourge of the countryside has entered the city and rolled right up to the palace gates.
Who chose to save Bangkok and sacrifice us? The investigation takes months. The final report, released in June 2012, is 400 pages long. The conclusion: coordination failures and communication breakdowns.
It came up very fast. It was dry early this morning. Now the whole street is flooded.
Contributed to the severity of the disaster. No one is held responsible. No one is fired. No one goes to jail. A journalist named Som Kiat spends a year investigating the government's response. He uncovers leaked documents, conflicting orders, suppressed warnings. They knew the water was coming, he writes. They knew Bangkok would flood, but they didn't want to cause panic. So they lied. The cost of that lie, Som Kiat writes, was $45 billion and 815 lives. The long recovery. 2 years later, some industrial parks are still closed. Some families still haven't returned home. Somchai and her daughter live in a rental apartment now.
And residents are already running out of basic supplies.
Smaller, cheaper. Her daughter still doesn't talk much. She's in therapy, Somchai says. The doctor says it'll take time. How much time? Years, Somchai says. Maybe forever. Narong rebuilt his house. It took him a year and all his savings. I'm not leaving, he says. This is my home. But he's different now. I don't sleep well, he says. Every time it rains, I wake up. I check the water level. I can't help it. The flood is over. But for Narong, it never really ended. Precha found work at a new factory, different company, different city. I had to start over, he says. At 45 years old, he doesn't talk about the flood much. What's the point, he says. It happened, it's done, but sometimes, late at night, he thinks about that day.
4 roads that lead to Highway 340 have sustained damage.
3:47 p.m., 20 minutes to save what he could. I still wonder, he says, if I'd moved faster, if I'd grabbed something else, he trails off. It doesn't matter, he says, it's gone. The final count, the numbers, 815 dead, 13.6 million people affected, $45.7 billion in economic losses, the 4th costliest natural disaster in history, 65,000 square kilometers flooded, an area the size of Sri Lanka, 20,000 factories damaged or destroyed, 2.5 million people displaced. But numbers don't tell the whole story. Somchai's daughter stopped talking. Narong can't sleep when it rains. Precha lost his career at 45. Wichai watched his house disappear. Dr. Chanita treated diseases she hadn't seen in years. Families never returned. These are the stories the numbers don't capture. The trauma that doesn't end when the water drains. 13 years later, there's a temple in Ayutthaya, Wat Chaiwatthanaram. On the outer wall, there's a line. Dark, stained, chest high. It's been 13 years. The line hasn't faded. Tourists take photos in front of it. Most don't know what it is. A tour guide explains, this is the high water mark. From the 2011 flood, the tourists nod, take their photos, move on. But for the people who lived through it, the line is something else. It's a scar, a reminder, a warning. October 2011, the flood that cost the world $45 billion. The flood that drowned cities, disrupted economies, and broke families. The flood that was redirected by a single decision. The water receded, but the flood never really ended.